22-year-old Lindsay Hawker went to Japan for a year to teach English. On Saturday, March 24, 2007, she stopped communicating with her parents, boyfriend, and friends. Lindsay Ann Hawker was reported missing on Monday, March 26, 2007. Soon after, her body was found. Lindsay Ann Hawker was born on December 30, 1984, to parents Bill and Julia Hawker. Lindsay had two sisters, older sister Lisa and younger sister Louise. She was from Brandon, near Coventry, England. She graduated from the University of Leeds with a bachelor's degree and decided to spend a year teaching English before pursuing her master's degree. Lindsay's choice to go to Japan was deliberate. She was well informed about the country, spoke Japanese fluently, and studied the local traditions. Lindsay enthusiastically told her family about Japan, emphasizing its safety. Before her departure, Lindsay's father, Bill Hawker, bought her small lavender sachets to give to people she would meet in Japan. Lindsay lived in a dormitory at the school, where her neighbors were two fellow foreign teachers. She enjoyed everything about her new life, as she had always dreamed of living in Japan, and now her dream had finally come true. Her parents were surprised at how quickly Lindsay adapted to her new life, easily interacting with the locals and speaking Japanese fluently. Lindsay Hawker had a boyfriend in England named Ryan Garside. They agreed that he would fly to Tokyo to spend the summer of 2007 together with Lindsay, traveling around Japan before returning to the United Kingdom. Every day Lindsay communicated with her parents and boyfriend back in England over the phone. So when on the 24th of March, 2007 her family couldn't reach Hawker, they started to worry. Lindsay's relatives didn't call her neighbors until the next morning because of the time difference, fearing they might bother them unnecessarily. However, on the 25th of March, learning that their daughter hadn't returned home the night before, they became greatly alarmed. Lindsay was always very responsible, and her absence was unusual, so her parents immediately contacted the police. Hawker's family received important information from her boyfriend Ryan. He mentioned that Lindsay's disappearance might be related to a suspicious young Japanese man she had met the night before. For days before Lindsay's disappearance, she had sent Ryan a message about a strange young man who had approached her on the train and tried to start a conversation. She politely spoke to him but declined to give him her phone number. When Hawker got off the train, he followed her, asked her for English lessons. They started talking, and during the conversation, Lindsay didn't notice how they arrived at her apartment, where he asked for a glass of water. Lindsay, being sure that her neighbors were home, let him inside. Upon arriving at the apartment, the Japanese man turned on his charm and offered to draw a portrait of Hawker. It is worth noting that he turned out to be a talented artist, as Lindsay was thrilled with the piece and agreed to help him with learning English. In her last message to the guy, Hawker wrote that there was no need to worry about the young man. She felt that he simply really wanted to learn the language. According to the school rules, foreign teachers were allowed to conduct individual lessons, but meetings with students were supposed to be held only in public places. Before leaving, teachers were required to write down the meeting place, name, and address of the student. The police in Japan, after interviewing the girl's neighbors, found out that Lindsay had agreed to meet with the student in a cafe on the morning of March 24th. Analyzing her notes, they confirmed that the meeting was indeed planned for 9 a.m. In addition, Lindsay had written down the name of her student. It turned out to be 29-year-old Tatsuya Ichihashi. Thanks to the extensive surveillance system in Tokyo, law enforcement authorities were able to easily track the girl and the young Japanese man to their meeting in the cafe. It turned out that the young people spent about an hour together in the cafe, and then decided to continue the lesson at the young man's apartment, calling a taxi for this purpose. The police quickly located the taxi driver by the number of his car. He said that Lindsay asked him to wait for her for 2 to 3 minutes while she went into the young man's apartment. The driver waited for the girl for 7 minutes, but she never returned, so he left. The police were convinced that Lindsay's disappearance was directly connected to Tatsui, so they decided to interrogate him. On March 26th, as they approached the house where Ichihashi lived, they saw the Japanese man coming out of the doors. Before they could even ask him a question, the guy started running, and law enforcement couldn't catch him. After that, The police stormed Tatsuo's apartment and found a bathtub on the balcony, with Lindsay's body covered in sand. The autopsy results indicated that she died from injuries caused by a blunt object. It appears Hawker attempted to defend herself, as there were abrasions and bruises on her hands. After learning of their daughter's death, her parents hoped that the Japanese police would quickly catch the killer, but that did not happen. Tatsuo disappeared without a trace after fleeing the apartment and did not contact his relatives or friends. Even a year after the crime, his whereabouts remained unknown to the police. Realizing that the killer was not being actively pursued, Lindsay's parents went to Tokyo and asked the Japanese for help in finding Tatsuo, offering a reward of 10 million yen, about $73,000, for information on his whereabouts. Despite the reward, the killer remained free for another year and a half. In 2009, it became known that Tatsuo was smarter and more cunning than everyone thought. Ichihashi altered his appearance so he wouldn't be recognized. He couldn't go to the clinic because he didn't have money and was afraid of being identified, so he did everything himself. He used a scalpel, needle, and thread to make his nose slightly bigger and change the shape of his eyebrows. Despite enduring pain and being unable to sleep because of it, he had to endure it, otherwise the police would find him. When Ichihashi saw his wanted poster on the street with freckles on his cheeks, he immediately went home and cut them out himself. In addition to changing his appearance, Tatsuya used a different name and never stayed in one place for more than 2 months. When he was in public or places with cameras, he wore a hood and let his hair down so no one could recognize him. Despite his success, Tatsuo was unsatisfied with his appearance and decided to undergo a real plastic surgery, earning money as a hired worker on construction sites. His nose became longer and thinner, and his lips smaller after the first operation, and the surgeons changed the eye slant and slightly lifted the nose in the second operation. Before performing the second operation, the doctor took a photograph of Tatsuo's face. Reviewing the image and discovering traces of removed freckles on his left cheek, the doctor suspected something fishy, compared his documents, and concluded they were fake. Immediately after the operation, the surgeon reported to the police about a young man, indicating that he was likely being sought. After looking at the provided photo, the police confirmed that it was Tatsuo. News of his new appearance was spread, hoping that someone would recognize him on the street. In November 2009, a passenger waiting for a ship from Osaka to Okinawa noticed a suspicious man sitting next to him. He seemed nervous and jittery, constantly looking down and not making eye contact. He was wearing a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a mask which looked strange. The vigilant Japanese man decided that this person might be a criminal and alerted the station staff. The information was then passed on to the police, and the man was arrested before boarding the ship. It turned out to be Tatsuya Ichihashi. Upon learning that the killer was caught, Lindsay's parents traveled to Japan to attend the trial. Tatsuya confessed that he had deceived Lindsay into coming to his apartment, and then had a relationship with her against her will. According to him, he did not intend to kill the girl, but she threatened to report everything to the police, so he decided to persuade her but went too far. When he realized his mistake, he tried to save Lindsay, but it was too late. The accusation refuted his words, stating that there were no signs that he tried to save her. He also didn't call for emergency help, but simply hid the body in the bathtub. Lindsay's parents demanded the death penalty for Tatsui, but the court sentenced him to life in prison, as he had no previous convictions and had a positive reputation. The criminal wrote and published a book before the arrest, in which he detailed how he evaded the police for 2.5 years. Lindsay Hawker was deeply in love with Japan and left her hometown to go there, as it turned out, forever. Her parents still torment themselves with the thought, what if they had started to worry immediately when they couldn't reach their daughter? Could they have saved her? After all, according to police estimates, the girl spent 15 to 36 hours in Tatsui's apartment.